Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here with all of you, old friends and new friends. So we are shifting a little bit out of the academy with this presentation. I was in the academy for 30 years, and I retired in the spring of 2020, which became very complicated, as you all can imagine. And so as I was doing the shift didn't happen the way I thought the shift was going to happen. I guess shift never happens the way we think it's going to happen. And then I had to think, how can I take what I did at the academy into the community? How can I share with the community what I've been doing on campus, even though I was always trying to do outreach when I was full-time teaching, but I had to take a deeper dive with that. And before I retired, quote unquote, I became involved with the campus at the University of Mississippi called the University of Mississippi Slavery Research Group. And it was a fairly new group. I didn't know about it, and I was like, can I join? I'm not a researcher, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not a African American studies professor, but can I be part of this group? And they said, come on. And they have been finding out the stories of the enslaved in our town, and I get a little emotional when I talk about this stuff, so sorry if I get there. Our town, our community, our campus itself, and what is that history? Who are these people? And what are their names, and what can we find out about them? And so as I was sitting in on these meetings, I'm thinking, gosh, these stories need to get out. These stories need to be off of paper. And I would kind of say, can I use these stories, take these stories and embody them? And through a lot of time and negotiation, they became open to that. And it really started with ACDA. I was hosting an ACDA, and we actually have a slavery history research tour on our campus. I said, can I have that tour during my dance conference? And they're like, why do you want that? And I was like, trust me, people are going to go. People are going to be fascinated with this. They're going to go. And we had basically a tornado warning, and people were out there, with their umbrellas going on the tour. So during that conference, I actually created a site-specific composition class that was based on those sites. I was like, okay, let's take these sites, and we're going to have an advanced composition class about site-specific choreography. And that led into this whole moving spirits phenomenon, I guess. So the person that I hired to do that, no one in our community saw what was created from the students. And so in the fall of 2019, I said, okay, we need to have the community see this, because it was ACDA was during spring break, no one was around, no one came and saw it. So I was like, okay, we're going to recreate this during the school year so people could see what we did. And then we had COVID, right? So COVID. And the University Slavery Research Group took a while to get going again. And when we started talking again in the fall of 22, it became clear that there's another new story that they had come up with. And I'll just say with this slide, sometimes leading is following. Sometimes you have to take a back seat. And I'm going to address a little bit the white lady in the room. But I had to take myself and really put on my observer goggles and be as non-biased as I could, and just see the story, tell the stories that need to be told, but allow the voices that need to tell the story to be heard, if that makes sense. And so I got permission from the UM Slavery Research Group to tell this story about Roanoke. So Roanoke is famously the home of Robert of William Faulkner. William Faulkner. So the people that we don't know is Robert Shigog. So people come from all over the world to see Roanoke, to see about William Faulkner, and he actually wrote on the wall and all this kind of stuff. But what's not really known is it was built by this man named Robert Shigog, who was an enslaver, very, very wealthy enslaver from Ireland originally and Tennessee to Mississippi. And he had 2 large plantations out in the nearby counties, but he built Roanoke as his in-town house, and it wasn't called Roanoke then. And behind the big house, literally behind the big house, is a structure that everyone calls the smokehouse. That's what William Faulkner did there. But this was actually a slave dwelling. And so no one really knows that part of the history. They're starting to talk about it, but no one really knows that history. And so I asked, can I tell the story of these 9 people who were enslaved on this property? I mean, people come to Roanoke to take wedding photos, they come to take pictures for prom, they come to, and there's literally sometimes standing in front of the slave dwelling. Like, do y'all know what that is, what you're standing in front of? So that's where what this story is about, and what we're telling. And so our goal was to change the environment, change the ground that we're walking on. So we wanted it to be site-specific. And the way we got to what we were going to do out there, so my partner, she's the historian, Rondalyn Pears is her name, and she and I walked the property together. And this is our second project that we did. We walked the property, it's like, what does this land feel like? What are you feeling here? And there's so many different spaces there. One of the main spaces is a circular brick garden that's in the front that's modeled after an English garden. And it's in disrepair, and it remained in disrepair. And I learned that one of the reasons why it's still there and it's in disrepair is because Faulkner actually chose to keep it, to show that this was a site that needed a lot of maintenance. And he wanted to show how it came in disrepair because the enslaved people were not there to keep it up. So we used that piece of property. We used behind the big house, between the slave dwelling and the big house kitchen. And then we used another piece of property on the side. There's a whole other side story we told about Caroline Barr Clark, who was Faulkner's mammy, but that we told it from her point of view instead of his point of view, because it's often told from his point of view. And then in the back of the very, very back field, we did there's a real story about someone who escaped from that townhouse. And we told that story of that person named Big George. So we wanted to change the narrative, we wanted to change the land, we wanted the land to feel different, and we didn't want it in a theater because we wanted it on the property, on the place where people lived and breathed, had babies, lived and died, worked and loved, and all that sort of thing. And we wanted to make sure that the people knew it wasn't only about Faulkner, that there was something else that happened here to other people. So we actually, though, started with a get-together. So I recruited, somehow, I don't know how it happened, it was a little bit the universe. I had 22 people ranging the age from 12 to 85. And one was a family. I was like, when the Wilkins aren't here, we have half the cast gone. Because she brought her kids, her grandkids, and her parents. And I was like, wow. And my historian friend, Rondalyn Pears, led us through a profile exercise for us to all to understand that we're not binary, white and black, that there was a rainbow of colors in the room, and that we all brought our different perspectives to that. So I could not start on the property and say, okay, let's go out there on the property and we're gonna create this dance about these enslaved people. We had to sit down, we had to talk about it, we had to process, we had to digest, and also ask them, why are they there? What do you want out of this, and what do you want to contribute to this? And that was a big part of my choreography process, where I did not necessarily choreograph, I would say. I think I was more like about the structure. I would guide them through different processes and allow the dancers, and these are community people who became dancers, right? Which was pretty awesome. And I had different processes with them as we would start rehearsal, as we would be in rehearsal, as we were creating, and as we ended. And so these are just some scenes. That's Doug in the middle there. That's his wife, Miss Lula. That's Rachel with her arms wide open. So I'm a theater and dance person, movement for the actor person, so I combined these worlds. And so all of our rehearsals started with the name game. So I was really thinking about trauma-informed rehearsal processes. So at the very beginning, everybody did their name in a circle, and Doug was always, Doug, like he did that every time, Doug. And we'd go around and say everybody's name so they would identify themselves. And then I asked whoever wanted to, that they would ask the permission from the ancestors to begin our process. So I let my dancers lead in this process of they were opening the space and asking for permission from the ancestors to proceed. And then I used a Michael Chekhov technique called the imaginary body, where you imagine a portal in front of you, and across the portal is an image of your character. And I would ask them, see that person. Who is that person? Who's on the other side? What do they look like? How tall are they? How short are they? What size are they? What are they wearing? Are they happy? Are they sad? What are they going through right now? So we did a whole long list of, given circumstances sort of things, and then we'd walk through the portal. And once we walked through the portal, we were in the work. And then again, I would use that to have them create, what movement do you want to do? What shape do you want to do? What are you feeling would be happening right now with the person that you imagine? We also use the concept of button. Is anybody familiar with button here? So in a lot of theatrical intimacy education, if you're traumatized by a particular moment, you get to say button. Stop. Everything stops. And we allow that person to process that, or if they can't speak, have someone speak for them, or whatever it is. And we did have a button moment in the slave dwelling, because we went in the slave dwelling together, and there were a few button moments there. And then we would do our work, and then at the very end, we would step out of the portal so that they could be themselves again. And we do the name game one more time. So you get to go home and you get to be Doug, and you get to go home and you get to be Rachel. You don't have to take this home with you. So those were the processes we used for that. And unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties. This is the name game. This was the day that we performed, actually. And so the video isn't working, sorry, but that's what the name game looks like. And this is a look at the imaginary body. We did a lot of breathing going into that, a lot of inhaling, exhaling. And that was our youngest, Joey, our youngest participant there, and stepping through the portal. And we'll show you, let's see, where's the mouse? Here we are. Let me make sure this is my right. Yeah, so the first piece we did was called the system, and it was on this spiral garden. And the audience, we had about 250 people that came. It was a really amazing audience. They had to bring their camper chairs and sit around us. And I asked them to create 5 shapes that they thought their person would be doing. And everyone was sort of launched through these 2 trees into the system. And the idea was that the tentacles of enslavement are still embedded in our system. And we represented this through going through this spiral part of the rock garden. And so basically the movements they're doing, they came up with, I just linked them together in a pathway. So they're owning their own movement. Oops, I did no sound. From the problems we've had. And the music, actually, I commissioned it from a local composer, and this woman, her name is Kimberly, she's actually singing. So can you go back? Mm-hmm. talk about this, but the doc is really taking the point of view of what is it like to be a Black Mississippian and researching your genealogy, and how do you do that, and how hard is that, and what are the challenges around that? We were able to identify a woman that her name is Rosie Shegog. She's like 75, almost 80 years old, somewhere in there, who we believe is a descendant of these people. And so the documentary is taking the point of view really from Miss Rosie and what her feelings are, and then the dance is sort of supportive of that. And so I have some interview clips of the dancers and what it felt like to embody these people. This is Rachel. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for your patience.
What's up? You had it earlier. Fun times. Rachel, and then while she's working on it, Rachel has some dance experience. She's actually a belly dancer.
Technical.
Some sound is coming in. No, not other sound.
Sometimes.
So sorry, friends.
We go to, what if we click on the link freshly? Let's try that. Sorry, just count against my time.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. It's clearly working somehow.
Here it is.
Oh, it's quiet. I gotta do the speaker, that's all.
Can you hear it all?
No.
Let's go ahead and get to Barbara's interview.
I'm so
'cause
sorry.
Barbara,
This one?
Barbara's next one. Barbara's actually really loud voice, so.
Okay, yeah. It was working earlier, you were with me. I'm gonna try it on this one again, see if it plays out.
What about that speaker symbol?
Can you go to output? Instead of
So,
input?
it's,
Go to output and then
Yeah.
select.
it's
It's
there.
there.
It's there. And it went earlier.
What if you hit that speaker?
It was all the way up.
Yeah, all the things.
We tested it earlier, of course now. Here, I have an idea.
Oh.
Yep.
Here's what we're gonna do, we're gonna try this.
Yes. Put the microphone up.
You can also put the closed caption. You can also do closed caption. I think it will help. If it works.
Yeah.
I'm extending your time to 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and
Okay.
go on.
Sorry, Tom.
That's all right. But you can see how animated Miss Barbara is.
Yeah.
She's pretty something else.
We can share all these things after the symposium.
Let's go ahead and
But
let
it's
it
still
here.
playing, it's still playing.
Okay. Sorry for our technical snafus.
It's okay.
Yeah.
When the film
So
comes
sorry.
out, I'll let y'all know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still
I'll
working
share
on that
resources for
process.
sure.
We will
Let's go ahead
share
and go to
the
the audience.
slides.
It's the
I think that's the best way to do it.
So I'll just address this really quickly because this is a really complicated topic, obviously. But my ancestors are from Slovakia. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but I've been in Mississippi 35 years. Very much a part of that community, and I somehow gained a trust with these people that I can't even tell you how valuable that was to me, that they trusted me so much and let me guide them through this process. But it really was from me stepping back and giving space and allowing them to tell their story, but just giving them a structure and a form in which to put the story. And so we are, from our audience, these are responses we have from our audience after they watched it. So the physical setting and the action of actually moving through it. So the audience had to follow us along as we went along. It was very powerful knowing that it was a place of enslavement not so long ago. It was like truly being present in the time and place being portrayed. I hadn't thought about there being descendants of enslaved people or of slave owners still living here who know their ancestors were or owned enslaved people. I moved here more than 50 years ago, but have no ancestors who lived in the South before the 1900s. What seems like ancient history to me really isn't. The commitment of the performers showed a great trust in the biracial process. One person just literally wrote life-altering. I will tell them, they were asked, what would you tell people about what you saw? I will tell them it was an unforgettable melding of music, dance, drama, and history, and with a powerful political message. I have reached out to my diversity coordinator on campus to help me wrestle with my own privilege and what I can do to make things better. I plan to ask my closest Black friend if we can have a heart-to-heart talk together about race, specifically how I can be more sensitive and aware of her needs and feelings. This is an AI, it should made me, this is an AI mistake there, made me inspired to research my genealogy more. And this, how is this about leadership? Well, it really was leadership in a way of sharing. The very first rehearsal, I went home crying. I said, I can't do this. I can't do this. We set up a situation where we had the two youngsters holding hands and they were separated. The whole launch into the portal was that you were launched into the system of enslavement. And my friend grabbed me by the arms. She said, Jennifer, you have a skill and you have a way to tell this story that's going to really powerfully impact people. So trust your skill, trust your knowledge, trust what you know, and it'll be fine. So that was part of me losing my fear, but also finding a way to be in the background and allowing these amazing people. We're like a family now, we really are. We have reunions, we get together, allowing them to tell their own story. Thank you.
Thank you so much.